Hello, everybody. It's Marianne Bailey with the Hip Senior podcast, and today is book edition. We are interviewing Teepa Snow, who is a well-known and respected for her work in the world of dementia. Teepa, welcome to the podcast.
It's good to be with you.
I'm so happy. We're going to be talking about seeing the Gems Workbook today. And of course, I want to know, it's a gorgeous book, where you came up with the idea for it and what it's about.
So I came up with the idea of how do we talk about dementia in a way that's not awful. So, like mildly impaired, moderately impaired, severely impaired. And instead, I talk about like you're in an emerald state, diamond, ruby, pearl, amber. And so it turns out that each brain function, you can be in a different ability state depending on the type of brain change you have. So, like for instance, if you have frontal temporal dementia, you will probably have more issues in the front of your brain. So being able to respond well to a situation or something like that, versus if you have a language deficit, then you're going to have problems over in your left temporal lobe. So what we did is we got this a little more specific. So it was important that we make sure people understand what we're doing, because it's a way of looking at someone and saying, well, if they're doing this and not doing that, then here's some ideas of what I could do that would be helpful. So for instance, if you're noticing that verbal skills, so we ask people to look at these different verbal abilities. So the person is able to use single words and simple phrases, and they sometimes understand a single thing, but not a lot. When they use words to describe what is wanted and meant, it's often a challenge for us to interpret it. So we get distress when I say like over and over and over and over and over and over. Then the important word I'm giving you is over, but you're trying to figure out what does it mean. So then the next thing we do is talk about, well, you say back over. So you want to go over or you're done, you're over with it. And I added a visual cue. So this workbook helps people better deeply understand each of the gem states for lots of different functions, and focuses some on, so what are your options for intervention? So it truly is meant to be a workbook. So you go through and you have spaces to put stuff as you're working through it. So it has quizzes, it has check-in, it has pictures. So it's meant for multiple different types of learners, but it's also meant to be an interactive sort of aid when you're really trying to wrap your head around this stuff, because you're embedded. It's something you do routinely, daily, for a living, with a family member, or you've got great curiosity.
I have great curiosity. And I'm so grateful that you're willing to talk to me about these books, because I think it's important for people to understand where you're coming from when you write these books. So I think the books are amazing. I think you're amazing.
We also have a hookup with a video. So when you purchase the book, it also shows you where videos are that you can go watch me in interact as a person who's in that gem state. And you get to look at me and then figure out what's going on here. And so it's a great way to sort of check in at your knowledge without using people who might not be able to give permission as clearly as I'm giving permission. So if you see this, think this kind of thing. So we also have a video component attached to it.
I absolutely love that. It's so funny because I was going to ask about that. Like, if there was a place where people could download the forms in there to be able to, write more and practice that or whatever, for that, as well as like some kind of video stuff. So that is a really good option for that as well. All right. Well, what else do you hope that people get out of this book? Is there anything else that we haven't covered for that?
So sometimes what could happen is if you happen to be somebody who's trying to help a group of people, if you're all doing it together, it gives you something to talk about and learn together. And often in the world of dementia, we get so isolated and we get so into boxes that sometimes we can have different opinions about something. And without realizing it, we start fighting about things. She didn't. No, she didn't. She does. I don't know. And so by having this tool, we can each try to look at the tool, look at the situation, and then talk with one another. And it could get us to a place of relationship that is more of a collegial relationship or a supportive relationship versus an argumentative one, which happens a lot in families and teams where we see the person differently. And it's like, well, when are you seeing them? In the morning. Oh, well, I'm seeing her in the afternoon and evening. I wonder if there's a difference then, because what you're describing, she couldn't, I mean, I've never seen her do that in the evening. And then all of a sudden, we both realize we both have the very real experience. But because it's a different time of day, we have a very different experience. And it's not that one of us is wrong, one of us is right. It's all of us are right. It's just, if I ever have to work first shift, I better be ready. And if you ever have to work second shift, boy, you're going to be more prepared.
Well, also, I was watching a show last night and I thought of you because it was where a doctor had pulled somebody out from an accident that was and thought his hand had to be amputated. And then he was being sued for it. And he saw the whole event in his head, in his memory, completely different than the other doctor that was with him. And sometimes I think under different stresses and circumstances, not only did the person behave better, different than what they have before, but also you see things differently than say the next person does as well.
And it gives us a language that is a positive language, not this negative language we often develop around the world of dementia. So it says what they still can do, not just what's missing. But so if we have word confusion, well, I wonder if they're in an amber state. So let's figure out, well, what does that mean? Well, it means using a lot of language isn't going to be helpful. Using a few words and using a visual demo might be easier.
Amazing. And as usual, if they put the book down and they have one thought, what's that one thought you hope they have?
Oh, or aha. Because I hope they walk away with at least one insight into the world they're living in that has value to them. Because without that, then all that time you spent, if it didn't get you to think differently, see differently, or even be curious, if any of those things happen, I'm happy.
Nice. Teepa, thank you for talking to us about seeing the Gems Workbook today. Everybody, hit that purchase button because you're going to need this book no matter who you're dealing with or whatever. Just having that insight is going to be golden to you. So, Teepa, thank you again.
You're welcome.